Well, hello everyone, and today my special guest is none other than the How to Buy a Home podcast founder and host, David Sidoni, and he's going to talk to us about how that got started, what kind of value you can have by listening to the podcast, how it got started, where we're going, what the market's like, and nuggets that you can pull and chew on and use in your home buying or maybe even home selling journey. So without further ado, my brother from another mother, Mr. David Sidoni.
Well,
Welcome.
what's up, Michael? Always awesome to talk with you, my friend.
Yeah, so you're out west, so it's a little early in the morning out there where I just got done eating lunch. So um we're a little bit but that's not unusual for our business, especially how we're working. We're all over. Always having meetings at different time zones. So,
Yes.
so it's pretty self-explanatory how to buy a home in the podcast. And it's brilliant because that is the main thing that someone would type into search. How do I buy a home? And boom, there it is. It's cut and dry. So, um, how did you come up with the concept and what prompted you to start this podcast journey? Because right now, I mean, you're no longer a small time punk now. I mean, like you're up to like what 3 million, over 3 million downloads, I think.
Next year will be at 3 million. We're just about to cross two right now.
Wow.
Two
Yeah.
million. Yep.
And it's been around for about what 5, 6 years.
Yeah, we launched in the 2019, so we just had our 6 year anniversary. We obviously had a little break there during COVID, but we're going strong. We're getting to the point now where so much of the information that we've been giving, we're mixing in some greatest hits sometimes because,
Hmm.
as you and I talk about, so funny you were talking about time zones because I think you and I have probably most of our meetings are in like we probably had them in 3 or 4 different time zones because we're always
Right.
meeting at conferences. And the biggest effect that we've seen is that there is a lot of basic information that people unfortunately are not getting correct when they just Google how do I buy a home, and that was sort of the inspiration and the impetus for me starting this whole platform.
Right. Because you were an agent, you know, selling real estate for nearly what, 20 years, 15 years, something like that?
I'm at 20. I'm just about to hit my 20th year right now. I started in 2006. As you said, I'm in Southern California. So uh, when I grew up, I worked at Disneyland. That was my high school and
Yeah.
college job. I
Hmm.
became a realtor at 36 years old, and the market crashed right after I became a realtor. Well,
Hmm.
all my friends who worked at Disneyland had never owned a home. It's really expensive here. You don't make a ton of money if you work at Disneyland, but they like to work there because it's a happiest place on earth. And so as the market started to go down, we started in 2007, even before the 2008 October stock market crash and the big
Hmm.
collapse.
Hmm. Hmm.
Suddenly, all the first time home buyers started, all my friends from Disneyland started calling me and saying, oh, I can finally afford a house because they were thinking about it in 2003 or four and the market doubled. So then they went, well, now I can't do it. But as the market crashed, so most of the time when you start in real estate, you work with first time home buyers anyway. Well, my journey was that on steroids. And
Hmm.
then it was about 12 or 13 years in. I did everything that you're supposed to do. I had a partner. I built up a team. I was doing a lot of listings, helping people sell their homes. But I always kept coming back to my Disneyland people. And
Hmm.
it was around 2018, my wife looked at me and said, man, this is tough. You're only happy when you work with the Disneyland people. And that was
Yeah.
my light bulb moment. And
Hmm.
I remember I got in my car and I drove to Staples because I couldn't wait for Amazon to send them to me. And I got 3 big, thick notebooks, the notebooks with the 5 different sections. They're like an
Yeah.
inch and a half thick.
The
And I
mean
still,
5 stars.
yeah, 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 baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've still got them somewhere, but I just started throwing down all my thoughts. And then I started really getting intentional. My side hustle for a whole year was listening to the best marketing people in the world. I spent a lot of money on workshops and seminars and flew to a lot of places. And I realized that this passion of mine was something I could create a scalable business out of, and really wake up jazzed every single day knowing I was helping the people because
Now,
the
when you were gone to the seminars, were they real estate seminars, or
oh
were
no,
they more of like Simon Sinek, like start with why kind of seminars,
it
or
was
were they podcasting, like
yeah,
broad, like
it was beyond personal growth. It was beyond real estate. It
Mhm.
was many of them were e-commerce,
Okay,
and I was the guy sitting there. Like it was like they were 75% e-commerce, social media marketing.
okay,
Um, there's a big one in San Diego, which is great for me. So I just took the train down there and hung out. And
hmm
it's like 5,000 marketers and one random dude who thought, I wanted to be a creator. And it was
yeah,
a bunch of people who were agencies. And I basically realized I had this thought, I had this idea. And in real estate, the brokers tell the agents, they give them tips on how to do the marketing and they give them some marketing platforms, but it's really up to the agent to do it. The brokers aren't out there selling to the masses, hey, this is a big part of real estate that's not being done correctly and we want to help you with it.
hmm
And so first time home buyers have this giant hole. So I learned through Gary Vaynerchuk and Social Media Marketing
oh, Gary
Examiner
V, yeah,
and all these other people how you could establish your own brand and become a voice and
hmm
kind of a guru.
hmm
And I love it. I'm
hmm
more passionate about this than I am, about anything I've ever done in real estate. So I started sharing with everyone there's a structure, there's a planning, and most everything Google tells you is wrong.
right, right, and so, but you were comfortable on camera and so forth to begin with, because you can kind of tell, like, if you ever listen to one of the shows, I wouldn't say it's entertaining per se, but like it's far from dull. Like it is, almost like fun to take part into listening.
Well,
So,
first of all, next time I see you, I'm going to smack you in the head for saying you wouldn't say it's entertaining. But
well, because I would say if it was entertaining, like I didn't want to make it sound like it's not serious, and
yes,
because the info and the nuggets of information you're pulling is far more supersedes any sort of entertainment value as well. But yeah, it's not dull whatsoever. You know what I
uh,
mean? So you could tell like you're in your wheelhouse and comfort zone, and
yeah.
it's actually gotten better over time, I think.
Well, I should hope so, but I'm just busting your chops.
Yeah,
It is
yeah, yeah.
it's the hardest thing to in a world of fluff and no substance, and as far as realtors go, it's been the toughest part of establishing myself, because I'm a conundrum, and I appreciate what you're saying. I work really hard when I am giving market updates, analysis, forecast, and predictions. And I take the best stuff out there and then I put it all in one podcast. And
Yeah.
there's some deep, deep information, but
hmm
I'm trying to present it in an edutainment style. That's the
Yeah, yeah.
term.
Yeah, that's good.
But
hmm
I'm a weirdo. I love the NFL. I'm very curious to see what happens with your quarterback position this year in Pittsburgh.
Oh, dude.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
We'll
I
see.
also love musical theater.
hmm
So yeah, you're gonna get. So people go, how is this weird old dude on a microphone? Does he know so much about real estate? I'm a giant real estate nerd, and I just try to present it in a palatable way.
Yeah. Yeah, and the growth shows, and so I'm the unicorn in Pittsburgh, and I'll just say that, especially, well, I don't know if I have a an overall personality profile of each person, but when by the time I connect with them, they're already very well prepared. So, it's very rare to have someone that's kind of, mm, like that doesn't know anything. You know what I mean? They're very well ready to go, and they've had a lot of information already, and they're collecting data. So it's been, it's very much of a pleasure. Not that working with someone who doesn't know anything, that's okay. Like, because that's where I come in, and I can elevate my service to accommodate that. But it's also nice sometimes to speak. It's like we're speaking the same language, and it comes from the information they're getting from the podcast and so forth. So it's definitely really chock full of good stuff. And so you go to, and you're doing the seminars. You have this vision, so you record your first podcast episode. And how did that go?
Oh, it was a complete mess.
Yeah,
I tell people all the time, people will call me and ask for advice on how to start a podcast. I'm like, I'm your perfect person because, how you learn from trial and error. I was trial and error and error and error and error.
yeah,
I
yeah,
originally thought that I was going to be a YouTube star because, like you mentioned, I did have in my 20s, I did movies and TV, and then for 4 or 5 years, the biggest part of my career, I hosted television shows, some game
yeah,
shows, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, stuff like
yeah,
that, and kind of Entertainment Tonight for teenagers was a few shows I did, and so I thought the on camera was going to be the biggest part, but you were talking about the education that my listeners bring to you when you help them out in Pittsburgh. It's the same thing with your listeners right now. Like the people who are spending the time, I always say, if you've got me and Michael in your ear holes right now, you're ahead in the game.
oh yeah,
And it was understanding the passiveness of the podcast medium. People might sit down and watch a YouTube video, but I mean, keeping their attention for more than 5 or 8 minutes. But if they're
right,
driving to work, or they're doing the dishes, or they're walking the dog, or they're on the treadmill, they can pop something in their ears and educate themselves.
right,
And so at first, I was just trying to lay everything out. A couple of my episodes were just an angry old man talking about how the real estate industry was screwing over first-time home buyers.
hmm
I,
which is
I had,
true.
yep, it is. And so I had a 45-minute manifesto. Um, and over the years, as I received the customer feedback, I realized that and it wasn't just first time home buyers. I had people that bought a home 5, 6 years ago, and they went, everything's changed. I
Yeah,
feel like a first
right,
time home buyer. So
right,
I talk people through the process, whether they're, thinking about selling their home and then they want to buy, they'll come to me for that side of what they're doing. And I will help people, sell their home too. But the biggest piece of it was, we will sit down with someone and go, okay, here's what to expect. Ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. And, 45-minute meeting at Starbucks when someone says, I'm thinking about it. Well,
yeah,
now they come to that meeting with 20 hours of
yeah,
education they've had when they were walking their dog.
right, right. And I think so. For me, I love working with the first time home buyer, and because there's really, like, I feel like I'm utilizing so much of me. Like I'm really providing value because there's a lot of unknown with this family or person. And so, like, I'm pulling out everything that I've learned, and helping in that way, because if someone's been there, done that, you don't have to pull out as much of that sometimes, a lot of times. And one thing for me is, like, I don't mind if people are just thinking about it, because I think just taking those initial steps are huge. It's kind of like going to the gym. You know what I mean? One of the, granted, the maintaining the habits tough, but just setting foot in the gym is, like, usually the hardest thing to do. Once you're in, of course, you can fall off, but that initial step is the biggest step because that's what you have to do in order to make it happen. And, that's why, like, for me, I point out, the positives. Like, so I don't know if you're on Threads at all. Like, I look at Threads, and I don't try to market myself on Threads,
Yeah.
but it gives me a lot of feedback as to where people are mentally with all of this. And there's a lot of hopelessness for buying a home. Like, and like you said, like, you can do this, your sign says, and there's a lot of people that really feel like they can't. And so maybe, like, right now isn't the time. But at the same time, if someone's thinking it might be the right time because they have some ducks in a row, I got to point out why it would be a good time. I'm not gonna just say it's a terrible time. Why would I do that? Like, I believe in the American dream, and my why is being a catalyst and helping someone achieve that goal. So, like, yeah, I'm going to find the positives. You know what I mean? Because there are positives. Um, if there weren't, I wouldn't even get into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would just avoid the subject altogether. So, but what I'm seeing out there is a lot of discouragement, and because of prices and so forth. But just with different first time home buyers like I'm running into, I'm sure that you know this, but like what I'm seeing is the budget's all out of whack. Like, there might be a huge car payment, and that's like, do you really need that? Because that's what's throwing you off from getting approved, because all that money is going out to that every month, and it's actually taken away from you getting approved because your debt to income's all out of whack. Do you really need that Mercedes, right now? Like, maybe a Toyota, you know, just saying. And so, like, but people need to kind of take those first steps to look into, like, getting everything lined up. You know what I mean? And now that the age is going up, I was in my 30s when I bought my first home as well. And it took work. Like, I didn't just go, like, I wasn't a realtor, but I was in real estate. So there was a ton I still didn't know. And I had to do a lot of prep and get, debts paid off and things like that. So it was a process, you know what I mean? So it would have been great to have a podcast, have your podcast back in the 2010s, you know.
You know, the biggest thing that, as an advocate, as someone, just right now I have a microphone, anybody listening, you're never going to work with me. Let me give you the biggest piece of free advice that I can give,
Mm,
because I've been doing this now, the podcast, for 6 years. I've been helping first time home buyers for almost 20 years. I've got 6 years of tens of thousands of people that have reached out to me because of the podcast, the YouTube, and the How to Buy a Home website. And 72% of the people that reach out to me and say they're 12 to 18 months, and I just did this data at the beginning of this year, they say they're 12 to 18 months out. When we connect them with someone like you, the people I call the unicorns, the small elite group of agents who have the experience and the compassion and empathy to help a first time home buyer, 72% of the people who think they're 12 to 18 months out are under contract in 3.2 months. And
mm-hmm.
to continue your analogy about the gym, it's because this is the biggest piece of advice I can give everyone. People don't step foot in the gym because they go on the internet, they see some information. You have to have 20% down. Houses are unaffordable. You can't buy with this interest rate. A mortgage payment's going to be $500 or $750 more than your current rent. And they think they already have a picture of the gym in their head. They think, I'm not going to step in that gym. Why would I? There's one treadmill and one bike. That's not going
Mm,
to do me any good. What they don't understand is that if you have the right agent, that gym is like a Gold's Gym with every apparatus you could ever imagine and
yeah,
15 trainers. And that
yeah.
stop, the internet is giving them the wrong information, and they're stopping asking the question. And I've been saying this a lot recently. AI is starting to penetrate our world right now.
Mm,
And the difference between you going on Google and asking all the questions about how to buy a home is that every single piece of your life is going to create an offshoot. And you can't create a flow chart to ask the right questions. So, buying a home, trying to research everything on your own is like not understanding how to prompt AI. You can still get an answer from AI, but it's going to be a very simple little answer. The best way to use AI is to know what questions to ask. And
Hmm.
the only person who can do that for you is what I call the unicorns, and what an average, normal, non cringy old man would call an experienced agent, because
Right.
everything on the internet is stop or go. Go get a pre approval, and that'll tell you if you can buy a home. You want to sell your home? Go look on Zillow, see how much it's worth, look at how much profit you'd make, and then you can figure out if you can buy a home. That is so the tip of the iceberg. And
Right.
everybody makes that a red light or a green light. And it truly shouldn't be. It should be a starting line for you. And then
Right.
you need someone who has the experience that you have to be able to show you all of the options that you couldn't Google no matter how many times, because you don't know what question to ask.
Right. And that's what, yeah, you're right. AI is, in order to get specific, you got to get really specific to really get what you're wanting to get out of it. So that's why, we're kind of, learning more into that realm rather than, I mean, I'm kind of getting off a little bit on a little bit of, but yeah, so the
But
AI part is,
I mean, I'm
I,
sorry to interrupt you, Michael. It only gives you what it pulls from the internet. And the truth about
right,
buying a home is there are legitimate arguments for every piece or factor in buying a home.
right,
And if it's pulling everything from the internet, how can it tell you what's right for you?
right, that specific person
Because
or
you could
family or
argue
whatnot. Right,
always have a mortgage, never have a mortgage.
right,
You could argue that till the cows come home. And you could argue
right,
put down a huge down payment, put down a low down payment. The only way you get your own personal custom answer is, what are your family goals? What's your
right,
relationship with money? Do you
right,
understand? Do you want to do leverage? What is your retirement? It's so much.
right, right. And that's the thing. And yet there are, I don't even know what you would call them, influencers out there that are just saying, well, and they might be a single person. And I think what the marriage rate is probably down, I think, right? But it would not be practical for me with a family of four to, like, if I were to rent my house instead of owning it, I'd be paying double. So, like, I get what the single guy is saying who's 28 and on YouTube, but someone with a family is hearing you say don't buy that house. Their situation is totally different. Whereas, it would be nonsensical for me to do that. 47, married, two kids, because I'm paying out the wazoo. And it depends on the market that you're in. Um, yeah, every situation is different, what the goals are. So, and a lot of the folks, that's where breaking those situations down is it takes time and care. And if someone is, an agent, or a team or a team lead is, you know um really overloaded with a lot of other things, it's harder to do, just in fairness. So then you get kind of tossed to the person who doesn't have anything else going on, and therefore, maybe not the most sound or thorough service and advice and so forth. And um, what I run into a lot are, it depends on the situation, how much, what the credit score is. That would be maybe a couple different lenders here with programs. If, okay, they know they're putting this much down and so forth, then we're maybe looking at someone with that we can get, with better service and communication. There's so many factors. That's why I tend to offer various resources, because not only the programs, but also, connecting with your unicorn lender is important because you want to be able to receive if you need to be pragmatic, or if someone kind of really needs to help you with baby steps and really um, that's okay too, because I have those people. It really depends, and I want everyone to talk to each person so they really have an idea, not to shop rates per se. I mean, they can if they want, but they're all relative anyway. um, but some of the things that we have in Pennsylvania or greater Pittsburgh, they might be seasonal. Like, they might be a grant program, and once those grants are all handed out, they're gone. But it might be in the spring, you want to call that bank because they got the best program. But maybe when it comes in by Thanksgiving, they don't have it anymore, so maybe not. So it always changes too. Everything's changing.
Yeah, the fluidity of the entire process of buying a home, I think, is the thing that your average buyer and your average seller is woefully underinformed about. And that has to do with the fact that we're now in an age where people get the answer. I talk to millennials, and I've had many of them tell me, that Google is their best friend. So people are used to getting a black and white answer. And there is an epidemic of people looking at selling and buying a home, specifically buying a home through the lens of pure black and white data and numbers. And what you miss there is exactly what you're talking about. There is a creativity to a process. Can you get approved for a home loan if you go to Rocket Mortgage? Sure. Should you use that product? Is that the best product? Could you be saving thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars over the lifetime of you owning a home? You bet you. So, talking to someone who can offer you not just the yes, but a yes and. Yes, you
Right,
could do that, but let's
right,
look at everything else.
right. And that's the thing. It's not with a company like Rocket. It's very different because they have consumer lending on one end, but I may have a broker that works with Rocket. Total different set of lending situations and programs.
Yep.
So, like, it's not all the same. It's just not. And not even every individual there. I used to do a lot of business with them, like early on, like when they were still Quicken and things. And just like anything else, like any loan officer, they're not all created equal. So, like, were there great caring people? Yeah, but there was also people that not so good,
Well, the people who answer the
and
customer service line, if you go online and you get the person at the customer service line, that's the person who isn't going to understand and have the creativity for you. So,
right,
having a broker who can find you the best person at each individual financial lending institution. Personally, me, I'm never walking into Bank of America to get a bank, but I have a mortgage broker who has a relationship with someone there. And
yeah,
as you said, sometimes that mortgage broker might be shopping a loan to a bunch of investors, which
right,
most first time homebuyers use. But maybe their contact at Bank of America knows about a grant that might have a couple months left of money.
right.
And or maybe they have a specific program. And
Right, and I think that the lender, if they're large enough, may even have a separate department
yeah,
for the broker side versus the consumer lending side. You know what I mean? So it just is. It's very much different. So in terms of the market this year, um, so I know in my market in Pittsburgh, inventory is we're getting a little bit more inventory overall. Um, do we see price reductions? Yeah, one thing I ran was, a couple years ago, we were at like 98% list to sales price ratio, and we're maybe at like 95 now, which is still great. But I mean, like 98 was like on point, and a lot of offsetting that was people going over the list price. And, so for me, do I still see multiple offer scenarios? I do, especially at certain price points. Um, where it used, well, there was one we did offer. I think that they had something like 15, but that's more rare. Where 5 years ago, that was pretty common.
Yeah.
If there's multiple offers, I might see two or three, in a situation. So yeah, that's out there, but it's not quite as competitive. Price reductions, things like that. But I think in other markets, though, they're kind of tight right now, I think, right? A lot of some stuff sitting.
Yeah, I've been talking to the different people that the How to Buy a Home platform that we will refer people to all over the country, and I'm starting to hear that in some places there, and again, it's local. Everything is dependent completely on where you are, but overall, what we're seeing this year is prices are slowing. They are still increasing, but at a much slower rate. We're talking like
Mhm.
1% as opposed to
Mhm.
going up 4 or 5 or double digits where we were a couple years ago. The inventory is increasing, but the biggest stat that has been really just a revelation to me is that 50% of the sales last month had one form of a seller concession.
Mhm.
And that to me says that the the sellers were in a position where you're not offering a concession if you got 15 offers.
Right.
You're finding out who's got the most cash and who can offer you the most. But something I tell people all the time is real estate cycles are hysterical to me because where are we? We're May, June now. A home that goes on the market this week, they didn't start thinking about it in mid-May, and we're looking at all the data in mid-May. Christmas, they were like, we're going to sell our house. And then January, February, March, they started thinking about it. So that's the number they have in their heads. So
Mhm.
you're
Yes.
probably seeing
Right.
that 95% because they're putting it up thinking, well, home's been going up 4 or 5%. So we're going to
And
list our house 50,000 more than Jenny's down the street and her house wasn't
that
built.
is exactly where I'm at right now because I have listings coming on the market, and it's it used to be when you'd prepare a list, it would be, yeah, don't just clean it up, don't do any remodeling, just clean it up, have it tidy, all that, and we'll be fine. Well, now there's a little bit more strategy to be done because now I got to think, okay, that really starting to break down price per square foot. We're really looking at the comparables in their kitchens and their baths and how updated they are. So I'm like, I don't think you should remodel the kitchen or anything, but it right now it gives the perception that it's dated because of the color of the cabinetry. So let's work on that so someone's not thinking that when they go in. Because that's all the others that we've seen, all the comps. Um, they're more updated in that regard. But so I really want to try to encourage because it's still good, but I don't it's a reflection on me usually if I'm really going for the gusto for them saying, yeah, you can do that, and then it sits because like it falls on my shoulders. Whether they're upset about it or not, it still does. So it upsets me because no one's harder on me than me. So, it's still, uh, I want to make sure that we're doing it right. Not leaving money on the table yet, making it so it'll move. So it's really diving into the skill set again,
Yeah, and
you
that's where
know.
managing the expectations and explaining the creativity of how you can do things. You know, if you've only got one or two buyers and you're not really sure with one of them, but they're offering you a good price, one of the things that we talk about a lot on the podcast is a seller can offer a concession $5,000 or $10,000, and then that buyer can use that to do what we call a mortgage interest rate buy down. And
Right.
instead of having 7% the first year, they can be as low as 4%. And that's a huge difference. And you might not. You're thinking, well, wait a minute, I gave them a concession. Yeah, but they're giving you a price that is the February, March price. And we're in a market where things are slowing right now.
Right. 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 So we get it's definitely a fine line. You know, it's becoming a pros market, and I enjoy that. You know, that's always uh that's fun, you know. And but I'm compassionate too. Like if there are, agents that are out there, struggling or maybe don't have it. That's the thing. Like my door is always open. Like if people will ever want advice, and not that I know everything. My gosh, I don't. I so don't. But I'm happy to share what I know. I would rather someone do that than do it all wrong because I see some of the work and it could be better. So certainly some of part of my heart goes into wanting to help others, but I have limited capacity, so I gotta make sure I'm taking care of my clients, myself, my family, and then kind of what's left of me can do that. So okay, so I guess one thing I want to ask, and so we're both coached by Brian Buffini, and you're in Buffini country, so you've been along probably whenever he used to eat lunch with everybody and stuff. So, but he has like the rapid fire questions. One question that I have, I don't do rapid fire, but the question is, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this. Um, what is something that younger you would be amazed by if they saw you doing it now? Like something that you never thought you would do that would, younger you would be like really blown away by, either mortified or happy or just surprised.
Oh, I can give you two answers. The first answer is from my dad because when I talked to him in 2018 and was getting the idea for the podcast, he just started laughing and I said, "What?" And he said, "Remember when you were 28 years old and you called me and you asked me what's a mortgage? Now you want to start a
Hmm.
podcast explaining to people how the best way to buy a house?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay, thanks, Dad." So,
yeah,
but me personally, it's probably being a CEO and running a company and realizing the individual. I always thought I'd be a cog in a wheel, doing it my way. I never wanted to. I always wanted to help as many people as I could, and I figured that would be the I could help 25, 50 people a year my way because I could choose my own clients, and then I'd be happy. I'd make enough money, and suddenly I realized I would be shocked that I got to a point that I realized that the entire industry is doing first time homebuyers dirty. And I have the ability to explain to everyone, whether they go through our program or not, just to teach tens of thousands, eventually someday millions, the best way to do something that's going to be one of the biggest steps in their lives.
right, right, right. And I gotta say that it, thanks to the way you have articulated it, I feel like I'm better at articulating the first time home buyer, lack of service or care, and kind of what my thoughts are. It helps a lot. Like hearing you articulate it has helped me be able to articulate it better as well. um and so if they listen to you, they may have heard me say something similar before. uh when it comes to, yeah, and I just know because when I started as well, I, of course, got a lot of first time home buyers. And fortunately, um, I mean, I got to work with some really great people who were really grateful for the work that I put, into them. And it just kind of went from there. And yeah, it became the most enjoyable for me, most enjoyable, the most rewarding, the biggest dopamine hit you can have. And so then I remember when you called me, I thought you were scamming me. You're like, yeah, I have a podcast, and yeah, I'm coached by Buffini and stuff. And I thought, is this like I remember looking you up because like we have the database, we can look and see who's all like a member. And there you were with your how to buy a home logo and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it was legit. And like, it's been, my gosh, it seems bigger than ever at this point. So the Last Lease Ever program, by the way, I don't want to forget that.
Okay.
So explain. to someone, who is looking to buy a home, the Last Lease Ever program?
So last summer, I finally put a name to this. So I appreciate all the accolades, but here I am. Last summer, I was 18 years in the business, and I've been doing this thing, and I never put a name to it. Way to go, genius! So I finally put a name to it last year. 72% of the people that come to me and think they're 12 to 18 months out are under contract in 3.2 months. So the concept was, what are people not hearing? And what they're not hearing is, hey, you're 12 to 18 months out. Cool. I don't want to get you pre approved right now. And I don't want to get you to go start looking at homes next weekend because the time is right. Pressure, 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 pressure.
Right.
Uh-uh. Most people who are trying to figure out how to buy a home, the question is, where do I start? What
Where
do
do
I
I
do
start?
first?
Right.
And the internet tells them one thing: go get a pre approval.
Hmm.
And it's the absolute wrong thing because you will get a red light or a green light. And as I said, I've been doing this a long time. I speak in metaphors all the time. It should be a starting line.
Hmm.
So it's real simple. There are three main things that are going to make up the financial picture that will get your loan approval: your credit score, your debt, like you mentioned, the debt to income ratio. And don't get me started on that whole car payment thing. It'll be a
Right.
4-hour Joe Rogan podcast if I get into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one is your savings. So what a lot of people do is they'll research and they'll try to figure it out, but they don't really know what to do. So we just break it down. Hey, credit score 760 is the goal, but even as low as 580 you could buy a home. But again, yes you can, but should you? So we find out where your credit score is, and then we give you a bunch of tips and techniques. One little thing you can do this month to up your credit score so that you can get a better loan. And then
Hmm.
we look at your debt, and then we take away all the stuff that you hear on the internet. You don't want to pay off all of your debt in most cases. You don't want to put all, because then you have no money for savings. And if you follow a Dave Ramsey method, it's going to be 5 years before you have enough money for a down payment. So
Right.
figure out where you are on your debt, and then when you have the guidance of a professional, you can figure out, okay, I'm going to take little pieces out of that every month. But you're doing it with the guidance of a pro is telling me what a mortgage bank is going to look at as far as my debt is concerned, not what I think is totally reasonable and logical. You're right. Maybe I got a $10,000 credit card. I'm going to wipe that out first. Maybe if you get it below 30% and you keep 2,500 on it, that's $2,500 cash you could have to go to the third thing, and that's the savings. And just
Hmm.
figuring out, with the savings, we're like, I don't care if you're 3 years out from buying a home. Today, automate a down payment savings account. 25 bucks a month. Get in the habit.
Yeah.
And you do those three things and you look at them every single month and see where you are and where you need to be. And suddenly you have a roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that some people want to try to get to the start line before they get to, that point. And um and that's okay, because I'm going to take them under my wing and kind of, you know, start sorting through all this. You know what I mean? Um, and if it is right away, great. If it's not, that's okay too. Like I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm going to retire doing this. So like
Yeah.
it's on your time. It's all good. But please don't not reach out because you're afraid of this or that or whatever. Because
Because
like
you think the gym is empty. They
right,
could
and
call
that,
you and find out there's a
or
million different ways to do
or
it.
that you're afraid to go to the gym because everyone looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's not
Oh,
it either. You know what I mean? So I'm like, look, I'm like a physician. Don't worry that your house is messy. I've seen a lot. Like I. I'm not even thinking about that. I don't care. You should see my house. You know what I mean? Or, you should have knew what my credit was like or what debt I had to pay off. So like, I don't care about that. And I don't usually look at that directly anyway. That's more of I could just hear what you're telling me and try to come up with a plan, but I'm not actually seeing everything either. That's usually the lender, but
Yeah, which we're
yeah,
creating that team of two people working in tandem with your best interest at heart and the
yeah,
creativity to show you all the different ways. That's what the internet isn't telling you. That's what Reddit's not telling you. You can go ahead and it's are there thousands of Michaels in Pittsburgh? No. So the biggest tip I can give everyone is stop trying to figure out how you're going to write an offer when you're researching online. How do I write an offer? How do I do an inspection? Spend 10 times longer researching who am I going to hire and then
yeah,
lean into their expertise.
yeah, yeah. It's good. It's good. Well, all right, my friend. It was a pleasure having you. How can someone get a hold of you, or of course, how can they hear How to Buy a Home podcast?
Everything is at howtobuyahome.com. You just go there.
Howtobuyahome.com.
Yep. You can listen to the podcast. There's even a button that says Ask David. And as soon as I'm done with you, I got to go into my emails and find all the questions for the day. I answer every single one.
Right, you do, and you respond quickly, which
Yes.
I've heard about many times.
Yes, a lot of the folks appreciate that, and it's a scary situation, and the last thing you want to do is ask a question and not hear from someone for a week. And
Mm.
I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. So you
Yeah,
ask me a question, I've probably answered it 100 times.
yeah, for sure. Well, all right. Thank you so much. And you'll definitely have to come back again. We can talk about, and help look to help continuously here. So I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael.
All right.